Hello, in this video we're going to be using Anki, which is an open source flashcard program, and I'm going to show you how you can create your own cards in your own decks in Anki that contain mathematical notation, and in order to make them look nice, we're going to use LaTeX to do all of the formatting. So I've opened Anki, and I only have one deck in my Anki account right now, and it's for AP Calculus AB. So I have 127 cards that I've created so far. I have also created some subdecks, and if I drop that down, we can see that I have cards for Unit 1, Limits and Continuity. I have some cards in Unit 2, Understanding the Derivative, Unit 3, Derivative Rules, and Unit 4, Applications of the Derivative. So if you wanted to study just a certain unit, you could, or we can study the entire deck. If we're preparing for a midterm or if we're preparing for our AP exam, we might want to study the entire deck. So the entire deck right now contains 127 cards. By default, you're not going to see all 127 of those cards. So for those of you who are brand new to Anki, what I'm going to do is create a new profile. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-P. I'm going to create a new profile here, so it'll look more like what you're seeing. And this Anki account has no cards in it at all. So when you first start out, you just have a default deck with no cards in it. You can import a deck that someone else has created. So I'm sharing my deck with you. You can use the link in the comments below. Once you download that deck, you can just double click on it and it's going to import that deck into Anki for you. So I did have 127 cards, but if we look at this AP Calculus AB deck right now, it looks like there's only 20 cards. And that's because by default, Anki is only going to display 20 cards, 20 new cards per day. It's not going to overwhelm you with trying to study 127 cards all at once in one sitting. If I click on my deck and I go to Options, I can change that default value. So right here, new cards per day, it's set to 20 right now. If I want to see all of those cards, I can bump that up to 200. Show me up to 200 new cards a day. And when I do that, now I can see all 127 of my cards. So that's up to you, how many new cards you want to see each day, how many cards you want to review each day. You can change that. The idea is that you're going to use this for a short period of time every day. And so you don't need to see all of your cards every day. 20 cards a day should be about right if you're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes a day studying. And eventually you will cycle through all of the cards in your deck. But I'm going to leave this set at 200 so I can see all of my cards right now. Now if you do have your cap set at 20 or whatever value you choose to set it, and it's the night before a test and you just want to review all of your cards, you can set up a custom study session. So I'm going to click on my deck, AP Calculus AB, and notice at the bottom here I have the option to click on Custom Study. And here I can choose Study by Card State or Tag, and there are some other options here too. And then I can choose all cards in a random order. So this is cram mode. We're just going to study all of the cards. You can choose tags and kind of filter by how the keywords have been assigned, or you can, choose them all or just ignore that. And then hit Study Now and go through all of your cards that way. Now I want to get out of this mode, so I'm going to empty my custom study session and just go back to my regular decks. So now I have in my calculus deck all 127 of my cards available to me in this study session. But really the focus of my video here today is to show you how to create your own cards. You can add them to an existing deck. You can create a new deck. So down here you have a button to just start fresh and create a new deck. But let's suppose we want to add cards to this existing deck. Let's add a card to Unit 3 Derivative Rules. There's a couple different ways we can do that. So I selected the deck. I can click Add up here at the top, and it's going to open this window where I can add a new card. we have a place to enter the information we want to see on the front of the card and then on the back of the card. And before that, we should think about what kind of card we want this to be. Do you want it to be just a basic flashcard with a front and a back? Do you want to make it a card that can be reversed? So sometimes it'll show you the front and ask you for the back. Sometimes it'll show you the back and ask you for the front. We've got close, where you can start writing a sentence and then leave like a fill in the blank. And then these last two here you probably don't see on your menu because these are custom card types that I created, and I'm going to show you how to do that. But for right now, let's just stick with the basic, because if you're new to Anki and you've just downloaded the program, you're probably going to just use basic by default. So let's say on the front, I want to find the derivative of the sine of x squared, or sine squared x. So I'm going to say find the derivative of, and so here's where I have a problem, right? I'm trying to type sine squared x, and if I'm not using LaTeX, how do I do that? I could do something like this, which looks awful, but we'll just go with that for now. And on the back, we would have our answer, which would be 2 times the sine of x times the cosine of x. Again, that looks pretty bad formatting wise, but let's see what this card looks like. So here you're entering your information. You want to see your card. You can just click on this card button and get a preview of what that's going to look like. So there's the front, find the derivative of sine squared of x, and then a preview for what the back of the card is going to look like. So right now, by default, it's set up. The back of the card is going to show you what was on the front of the card, and then there's a horizontal rule, and then it's going to show you the answer for the back of the card. And you can customize this. If you don't want all of that stuff to appear on the back of the card, you can change it. This middle section here, we can use CSS to change the styling of our card, and we are going to do that to make these cards look better in LaTeX. The other thing we can do is add a field. And so the cards in my deck have a custom field. So not only am I going to enter the front and the back, but I'm also going to add a custom field so that I can type in the lesson number. And that way, if my students are having trouble with a certain card, they can see which lesson it came from and go back and find that in their notes. I'm going to go ahead and add this card for now, and then we can compare what this card looks like with the nicer version that we're going to create. You can also type in a tag down here. So this was a derivative rule, so I'm going to tag it with derivatives and add that here. And now it has been added to my deck. And then we could immediately create a new card. I'm going to close this and show you this browse window. If you click on browse, we can also get a preview of all of our cards. So we can filter this in several different ways, the entire collection. If I want to quickly find the card I just made, I could either look in my current deck, I can look and see what I've added today, but actually I added the entire deck today, so that's not actually that helpful. We can filter by keyword. I know that I tagged it with derivatives, but again, I have a lot of cards that are tagged that way. Find the derivative of sine squared x. So here I can click on this card button again to bring up that window and preview my card. Or what I actually do is I use this preview button up here, and you might not have that preview button in your Anki because this was an add-on that I installed. And it's really nice when you're creating new cards to have this extra preview window. I can open this up and then click on any of my cards and preview what they look like. So if I don't want to see both sides, it's going to show me the front of the card, and then when I click the right arrow, it'll show me the back of the card. Or I can just go through and see both sides. So I'm seeing both of my cards at the same time as I flip through here. Now, if you're interested in having this preview button for yourself, it's very easy to install add-ons in Anki. Let me close my browse window. And again, I got that right here by clicking on browse. So I'm going to close that, go back to my main window here, go to tools, add-ons, browse and install. So you can see I only have 4 add-ons installed right now. I've got Puppy Reinforcement, Frozen Fields, Advanced Previewer, and Visual Feedback. Advanced Previewer is the add-on that's letting me have that special preview button. So we're going to search for Advanced Previewer, and I'll show you how you can install that. So browse and install. I'm just going to click the browse button. It's going to take me to Anki's website. We've got all of the add-ons listed here, and you just search for the one that you want. Ours was called Advanced Previewer, which is right down here. So I'm going to click on that link. There's a description of what the add-on does, information about the add-on, and what we're interested in. If you keep scrolling, we want this number in the box here. This number, I'm going to highlight that, Command C to copy, and then I'm going to go back into Anki. Right here where it asks me for the code, you just paste in that code, click OK, and it's going to say add-on installed, restart Anki, and then it'll be installed. It's as easy as that to install an add-on. This other add-on that I really like is Visual Feedback. I can show you how that one works. If you actually pick a deck and start studying, so here I'm studying, let me make this a little bit larger. The derivative of tan x is secant squared x, so I hit show answer, and then now I make a choice, right? Either yes, I knew that it was good, it was super easy, don't show me this again for 4 more days. Or if I got it wrong, I can click again, show me this card again in less than a minute so I can review it again. But I know the derivative of tan x is secant squared x. I got it right. So whether I click good or easy, when I click my button, it flashed up a green circle. So it's just a quick visual feedback to me that I know I got the answer right. This one, the derivative of square root of x is 1/2 root x. So I can show the answer. I got it right again, but let's just say for the sake of argument that I didn't, or I just wasn't feeling real confident about it, so I wanted to see it again. When I click again, instead of that green circle, it's showing me that grayed out little swirl. As you're going through your cards quickly, it's nice to get that extra reinforcement. Green for good, gray for not so good. Now notice, since I just viewed some of my cards there, I've got 3 in the do column and 23 in the new column. Like this number went down. I think it used to be 25 probably. I think I only looked at 2 cards. So this is not the best way to preview your cards. When you're creating cards and you want to go back and look at them to make sure they look good and they're right, clicking on your deck and studying now is not the best way to do that, because once you get through your card, it's going to take it away from the deck and you're not going to be able to see it again right away. So I like to go into the browse, and that's where I preview my cards. So if I want to preview all my derivative rules, or you can sort by deck, I can sort by subdeck here. I've got my derivative rules, and then I just activate my preview. I can open both sides of the cards at once, and then I can look as many times as I want, and it's not going to take the cards away from me. I can also add cards right here from this browse. I don't have to go back to that main window. So up here I've got an add button. I can add a card. I can choose which deck I want to add it to. So right now I'm in Unit 3 Derivative Rules. That is where I want to be. So I'm going to keep that there. The type of card is still basic. I think it's time for us to change that now, because we want to redo the card that I just made and make it look a lot nicer using LaTeX. So I'm going to show you how you can create a custom card type. Let me close this, close my preview, get back out of Browse, and go back to my main menu. Under Tools, Manage Note Types. So you probably don't have these last 2 in your list, but you can add a new type of note. So choose what kind of card you want to add. And we're going to add a basic card, and then you can rename it, what you want to rename it. So this, in my Anki, I just called it LaTeX Basic, or Basic LaTeX, one of the two, I forget. So I'm going to call this Basic LaTeX, and then just so that it has a different name, I'm going to put card at the end. So a basic LaTeX card. So this is my new card type that I can select now from my drop-down menu. Right now, there are no notes in there. A note is a card. A flashcard is a note. So we've already added that, and now we can customize it. So I'm going to click on fields because I want to add a field to this card. Right now it just has a field for front and back. I'm going to add another field and I'm going to call it lesson because I want to be able to type in the lesson number on each one of my cards. And you can create extra fields for any extra information you want. If you're not sure you want to display it on all your cards, it's fine. If you just leave the field empty, it's not going to display on your cards. So you can create as many fields here as you like. And you have options for editing the field. But that's all I want for now. I'm just created a field called lesson. I'm still in this basic LaTeX card. That's my note type. And now I want to go into cards so I can customize this. This is just your basic template. I'm going to change the styling information and I'm going to change what's displayed on my back template. Now the easiest way to change this is going to be to copy and paste the code from somewhere else. So if you imported my deck, you already have that information from the cards in my deck. So this LaTeX basic here, I can click on cards and you can see on the front of the card I just have the front, whatever I enter into that field called front. Under the styling window here in the middle, I've got all of my like CSS styling information. So we can copy and paste this. And then for the back of the card, I've got it set to display the front side of the card and then a horizontal rule. And I made some adjustments from the default card to get the horizontal rule to look the way I wanted it to. And then I have it set to display the lesson and then the back. So the lesson right here is that extra field that I created. Now I created this class called lesson and I styled it in this middle box right here. So I've got .lesson and then in curly brackets some information about how I want that to be displayed. So I made it font size 12 point, it's colored blue, it's aligned left, and I changed the margin size to make it appear right here on the card. This is where I want. As I recall, by default, it centered it in the middle of the card, and I didn't want that. So you can change your styling in this window up here. So I called the class lesson, and then in the double brackets here, I've got the field that I'm asking for, and that's in a div tag, and then display the information that I entered in the field called back for the back of the card. So I'm just going to copy and paste this into the one that we're doing, which is our basic LaTeX card. Okay, so we're almost ready to go, but we still have to enter some information about LaTeX. So let's go back to my cards from my deck that you've imported. If we go under options, here we have some information about the header and the footer. And the footer I didn't change. By default it said end document. But the header, I have added some packages. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it into my new basic LaTeX card, into that header information here. And now we should be ready to go to style our cards in as this note type basic LaTeX card. So let's go back into browse. And we're going to add a card. And I can choose, again, I want to put this in subdeck number 3, which is already selected. So that's what I want there. The type of card, and I don't want the basic card, I want the one I just created, the basic LaTeX card. So I'm going to choose that. And it brought in that extra field that I created for the lesson number. And I'm ready to start entering the information for my card. Now I'm going to enter everything in LaTeX, even regular text, because I want it to all be formatted using the same font and the same size, and I want everything to look consistent and professional. So I'm going to start out with this LaTeX environment. So it's the shortcut is Command T and then T. So you can just choose it right here from that drop-down list, or super easy from your keyboard, just Command T and then hit T, and it puts the cursor in the middle for you. So on the front of my card, I want the derivative of sine squared x. And when I'm typing normal words, so I can say, find the derivative of, I don't have to do anything special, but when I enter math, I need to be in math mode. So I'm going to use dollar signs. And then I want sine squared x. So backslash sine squared x. I can preview that now, see what that's going to look like. So at the top, find the derivative of sine squared x. And then I haven't entered the back yet, so it looks a little weird. Now that's not really what I want my card to look like. I was just showing you how you can mix text and math. I don't want the text in front there. I want to ask for dx, so I want to enter a fraction. And then parentheses around the sine squared x. I'm going to do a left and a right. And let's preview that. And let's go ahead and put our answer down here. So the derivative of sine squared x is 2 sine x cosine x. And I didn't enter any information about the lesson. So when I actually view the card in study mode, this wouldn't show up at all. It would just be left blank. You wouldn't see the word lesson there. So this is what my card looks like now, and I'm pleased with that. The fraction right here is not in displayed math mode. If you like the larger fraction, that's easy to do. You just do, instead of slash frac, do slash dfrac. And then we get the large d over dx. I prefer it small. And then the lesson number. So I guess this would come in when we did chain rule. I don't quite remember which lesson that was. So I'm just going to say 3.5. I'm not entirely sure that's correct. And now if I look at the card, again, we can see where it's going to display the lesson number 3.5. So I'm happy with the way that my card looks. I'm going to go ahead and add it to my deck. Before I do that, I'm going to include a tag. So this is a derivative rule, and then add. Now, I don't have my preview turned on, but I could have had that turned on as well. Let me get my window back. So while I'm typing here, it's nice to have that preview window open because you can see what you're doing. You do have to have the card highlighted. So actually, I may have to add it first. Let's go ahead and add the card. And then click here to kind of update that. Let's see if it added it to the bottom. Nope, that was my original one. Let's show both sides. So for the sake of comparison, we can see what it looked like before we improved on our formatting. This one it was just a basic card without using any LaTeX. And here it is formatted as our basic LaTeX card type. So you see, it took me a while to find that card that I just created. If anyone knows a better way, and maybe there's an add-on, I don't know, or maybe I just don't know all of the tips and tricks. But if anyone knows a better way to quickly find the last card you created in this browse menu, please leave me a comment below. That would be awesome. Let's do one more card, just in case you have questions about how the close card type works. I'm going to close all of these windows here. Go back to my main window and manage note types. And again, if you imported my deck, you'll see that I have this closed LaTeX. I just named it that, but by default, your Anki comes with a close type. So we can add and then choose, we basically want a close basic I'm assuming, unless you want to do something reversed or something like that. Close basic. So you can add a new close basic and call it whatever you want. So you can call this one close LaTeX. And I'm going to add the word card at the end again, just so it doesn't have the same name as something that's already in my list. Close LaTeX card. And we can go through and edit it just like we did the LaTeX, the basic LaTeX card. So you can look at the example that I already have done. This closed LaTeX here has 19 notes attached to it. And if we look at the fields, here I did add a lesson field. These cards don't have a front and a back. This is a fill in the blank type card. So when you click to show what normally would be the back on a basic card, all it does is fill in the blank. It doesn't really give you a back side of the card. So you have your text field, and then I created this extra field, so you can just add here and create it because I wanted to be able to attach the lesson number, again, just for my students to reference. And if we go in and look at the options, you can see that, again, this is the same one I did for that basic LaTeX card. I added some things to the header information here, so you can copy and paste in there. And then for cards, I added that same CSS styling in this middle window. At the top, you see the front template. It just says the closed text. So this first line in this div tag, this is because I added that lesson field. So this is just styling information, calling up the lesson field, and then it's got some styling information attached to it. And then our closed text. So that's all there is to creating that type of card. Now when we actually want to add a flashcard with that type, I'm going to just go back into derivative rules again. Add a card. I like adding cards through the browse menu. I mean, you certainly can add it right here. You get all of your same windows, but I like to be able to click on that preview box while I'm working. So let's just pick current deck. I'm going to add a card to my current deck. And right now, the type is a basic LaTeX card. I want to show you how to do a closed card. So I didn't actually create that new one. I created it, but I didn't actually paste the new information in it. So for the purpose of demonstration, I'm just going to use this one that's already done. So I'm going to choose that as my card type. And now we just have these two fields, so I can put in the lesson number and I can put in my text. So let's say I want to do something with multiple fill in the blanks. So let's say, let's do the definition of the three-part definition for continuity. So I'm going to start in my LaTeX environment, and let's say f of x is continuous at x equals a if, and then here I want a enumerated list, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm in a LaTeX environment. I can just, like I normally would, do a begin enumerate. Item 1, item 2, item 3, and then end enumerate. And, you know, if you're concerned, you want to just make sure that's working, we can just type 1, 2, 3 and click on cards to see what it looks like so far. And it says you haven't entered any closed deletions. That's true, I have not. So the closed deletion is, hey, where do you want the blank? Let's just start typing. It'll be easier than trying to force this to fit. So the first thing that has to be true is that f of a must be defined. Now you have to decide how much of that you want to display on the front of your card and what do you want to be left blank. And for the three-part definition of continuity, I really don't want to give any hints at all. Like, I want them to know all three from recall. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my closed deletion for the whole thing. So we're going to click on this button right here, Command-Shift-C for the keyboard shortcut. So it's going to enter some symbols here, and we just type now what the correct answer is. So I want f of a exists or is defined, something like that. So now let's try previewing this again, see if it likes that better. Okay, so on the front, it's showing f of x is continuous at x equals a if, and then there's just a blank there. And when the student clicks on answer, they're going to see that answer then get filled in with f of a exists. So I want to do that for the next part as well. I don't really want to give them any hints. I just want it totally fill in the blank. So now notice that it's got a C2 instead of a C1. If you make it C1, C2, and then here we can hit close again, it's going to make it a C3. This is actually going to create 3 separate flashcards. And on one of the flashcards, the first one's going to be left blank and the other 2 are going to be filled in. Where it says the C2 part, that's going to be left blank on the second flashcard, and the 1 and the 3 would be filled in. And then where it says C3, it's going to be left blank on the third flashcard, and the first 2 will be filled in. If you want to create just one card with 3 blanks, you can renumber them manually. So you can make that C1, C1, C1. So on card 1, all 3 of these are going to be blank when the student sees it initially. So you can decide how you want to do that. I create them both ways, just depends on the problem. So here we need the limit of f of x as x approaches a to exist. And we can check and see what that looks like. So far, so good. So this card, all 3 of those are going to be blank at the same time on the same card. And then when we view the answer, it's going to fill it all in. This really doesn't belong in the derivative rules deck either. This belongs in the limits and continuity deck. So I'm going to move it into there. I have no idea which lesson this was, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And I can add a tag. This is limits. You know what? I'm going to add a new tag, so it's going to make this super easy for me to find in the browser. I'm just going to call it new and add it. And then close this. And now if I search by that tag new, aha, there's the card I just created. So the preview mode isn't necessarily exactly what it's going to look like. I'm still wondering if the 1, 2, and 3 are going to pop up when we actually see this card. I'm not sure if they will or not. But if I then click this arrow, I'm going to see all filled in. And we can edit this card. If you don't want to have all 3 of those closed deletions on one card, we can go back and renumber them, C1, C2, C3. And then we're going to update this. I just clicked on new again to update this. And you can see where it has actually created 3 cards from that one card that we entered. And we can preview these. So here's the first card. Let's go back. Here's what the first card is going to look like. So the first part is blank, and then it shows the other 2. This is not ideal, though, because it's numbering them over again. And then my closed 3 I've got right here. So if I were trying to make this work, I think I would probably go back into my item and suppress those numbers. And if I do that, then I could manually type the 1 and the 2 and the 3. Probably want a space after my period. Okay, so now if we look at our card, that looks better. Even though it's like severely indented, it still looks better. We've got, obviously, number 1 is the blank, and the person knows that's what they're trying to fill in here, is condition number 1. And then our second card is going to have the middle one blank, and then our third card is going to have the last one blank. Okay, and then let's go back to our deck and just see if we can find that card. I mean, there are a lot of cards in that deck, so it might take a little doing. Let's see, I put that in the Unit 1 deck. Let's study that deck now and see what comes up. So I've got intermediate value theorem. I'm going to have a bunch of limits in here. This is one of the add-ons that I installed. This was the puppy reinforcement add-on. And you can see my other add-on, the green swirly, because I'm just hitting the space bar to indicate that I did good. Here's the one that we just created. So I'm happy with that. That looks pretty good. This is one of the cards, and they won't necessarily appear in the order that we created them. They're going to appear in random order. So there are 2 more versions of that card in the deck. This is one that I had created earlier. This isn't the one that we just created, but same content. Okay, so hopefully that was enough to get you started creating your own cards in LaTeX. So you can enter any kind of math equation that you know how to type up in LaTeX, and you can also do things like enumerated lists and other formatting things in LaTeX to get everything to look very professional. Leave a comment and let me know if there are other problems you're having with Anki or suggestions for another Anki video. Thanks.